Happy New Year! Let's start the year off strong by making mistakes and talking about Dune.
And all I've got to offer is sensitivity, intelligence, and charm.
So, if you have not already pieced it together based on the thumbnail of this video, this is going to be about the white savior narrative in Dune, or lack thereof. That is the discussion we are having. I know, this is a mistake. Dune truly feels like one of those things that no matter what you say about it, you're gonna piss someone off. So just know I really am trying my best here. But before we get into the epic that is Dune, let's begin by defining the white savior. The white savior is a cinematic trope in which a white central character rescues non-white, often less prominent, characters from unfortunate circumstances. This recurs in an array of genres in American cinema, wherein a white protagonist is portrayed as a messianic figure who often learns something about themselves in the course of rescuing non-white characters from their plights. Some famous examples of the white savior trope include, of course, The Blind Side, The Help, Freedom Writers, and if you want to get really classic, To Kill a Mockingbird. The problem with this trope should be obvious, but just in case it is not, the core problem is that this trope is taking away agency from characters of color, essentially making the claim that these characters cannot take care of themselves. They need a white character to come and give them that push to succeed. Yikes. So, Dune. Dune is a sci-fi novel published in 1965 by American author Frank Herbert, and is the first book in the Dune saga. Coincidentally, 1965 is also the year bullying was invented. So, is Dune a white savior story? Based on the synopsis and first book alone, you might be inclined to think so. And no one would blame you. Here's that synopsis. Dune is set in the distant future amidst a feudal interstellar society in which various noble houses control planetary fiefs. It tells the story of young Paul Atreides, whose family accepts the stewardship of the planet Arrakis. While the planet is an inhospitable and sparsely populated desert wasteland, it is the only source of melange, or spice, a drug that extends life and enhances mental abilities. Melange is also necessary for space navigation, which requires a kind of multi-dimensional awareness and foresight that only the drug provides. As melange can only be produced on Arrakis, control of the planet is a coveted and dangerous undertaking. The story explores the multi-layered interactions of politics, religion, ecology, technology, and human emotion, as the factions of the Empire confront each other in a struggle for the control of Arrakis and its spice. Oh yeah, and there are already people living on Arrakis. A native people group called the Fremen, who have been manipulated through the ages to believe that Paul Atreides is a literal god. Quite literally, their white savior. So things are not looking good for Dune. It's looking very white saviory. Little rich white boy goes to a desert planet, meets the native people group, overthrows the group's existing leader, but like in a chill, nice way. Convinces them he is God, and frees them from the evil Harkonnen forces. Woof. What this synopsis misses, however, is the nuance. Paul Atreides is not a hero, and the book and 2021 film are pretty clear about that. The 2021 film opens with a monologue that has a line that goes something like, who will be Dune's next oppressor? Or something along those lines, before making a hard cut to Paul. It is not subtle. Things get even less subtle in the second book of the series, Dune Messiah. Very aptly named, if I do say so myself. In which Paul and his sister Aaliyah have literally positioned themselves in a theocracy, ruling over Arrakis. This positioning eventually leads Paul to have just a really bad time. Not to spoil too much, but probably don't position yourself as the literal white savior on the desert planet Dune. Just if you ever find yourself in that situation, don't do it. It won't end well. So basically, Paul is punished for believing that he and he alone can save these native people, for believing that he is their white savior. But I think to really get into the nuance of things, we need to talk a little bit about Frank Herbert himself and his intentions. Frank Herbert was an interesting character. He was a famous teetotaler and a registered Republican with a big libertarian streak. To be frank, he seemed to be critical of charismatic leaders and governments of all kinds. His most famous story, Dune, is intrinsically political. In 1983, Herbert stated, "I am a political animal and I never really left journalism. I am writing about the current scene. The metaphors are there." Dune was written during the height of decolonization in the Muslim world, and the story reflects this in really obvious ways. The Fremen cheer and chant for Paul, their Mahdi, by yelling out Ya ha Chuhada. His mother tells the readers that this translates to "Long live the fighters," and this translation is mostly correct. The phrase is actually Arabic for "Long live the martyrs," and was chanted by Algerians when Ben Youssef Ben Keda, one of the leaders of the Algerian War for Independence, arrived in Algiers after gaining independence from France. So, you can see the parallels here. It's kind of not even a parallel, just the thing that was going on in the real world also happened in Dune. All this to say that the story is inherently political. Sorry. And then here's what Herbert had to say about our boy Paul and his family. Herbert writes that his story began with a concept, to do a long novel about the messianic convulsions which periodically inflict themselves on human societies. In so doing, he was particular that it was Western man who was the focus of his ire, who uses this messianic impulse to control other societies and further inflict himself on the environment. So here, Herbert is quite literally just outright stating that his intentions are to critique the white savior, the messianic impulse of the Western man. Dune relies very heavily on Islam to build its world, and this was very intentional. In his own words, Herbert wanted his story to be a re-examination of Islam, not just confining the Islamic influences to the native Fremen, but extending it throughout the whole universe of the book. Frankie Boy set out to create a critique of the Western white savior. If you believe he succeeded in that or not, well, that's ultimately up to you. Now, I am not a person of color, and to that end, I also do not belong to a native people group. The irony of me, about the whitest person you could meet, making a video about white saviorism is not lost on me. So, if you are a person of color and you have read or watched Dune, I want to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments. Your opinions definitely matter more than mine here. I will also be linking an article from nerdsofcolor.org down in the description, which looks to tackle this subject. In the article, which features an interview with the director of the 2021 Dune film, Denis Villeneuve, Denis has this to say. That's a very important question, and it's why I thought Dune was, the way I was reading it, a critique of that trope. It's not a celebration of a savior, it's a condemnation and criticism of that idea of a savior. Of someone that will come and tell another operation how to be and what to believe. it's a criticism. In response to this answer, the author of the article, Mike Manalo, had this to say. However, the truth of the matter has always been that Dune is a controversial story when viewed through the eyes of people of color. Though the surface-level interpretation of the story falling into the white savior trope has been disputed as being actually a critique on the idea of messianic figures trying to dominate their subjects, many still go back and forth around the idea that author Frank Herbert may be wanting to have his cake and eat it too, by making his white protagonist be a complex and sympathetic character at the end of it all. Again, this full interview and article will be linked in the description below, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Dune is one of those things that no matter what I say, it's going to piss someone off. And as an incredibly, genuinely enjoys the Beatles white person, I don't feel that it's my place to make the final statement on whether or not Dune is a white savior narrative. However, in my opinion, I feel like Dune set out to be this anti-imperialist, anti-white savior narrative, but it really misses the mark in some places. Our white saviors are maybe a little bit too sympathetic. They do get their comeuppance, but anyway. Good intentions do not always result in good outcomes. Hello, and welcome to my channel, and congrats on making it to the end of the video. Ooh, burp, gross. If you enjoyed the video, why not give it a thumbs up, or subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment? If you want to support the channel, you can even become a patron or buy some merch using the links in the link tree down below. Patrons get fun stuff like Discord access and the credit at the end of videos, and also I've been thinking I should probably get like a better computer for my streams, so if you want to help me fund that, I won't stop you. If you didn't like the video, big fan of the David Lynch Dune, huh? That's embarrassing. Bye.